Just across the Delaware River stands a mysterious stone bridge that some say is haunted by the ghost of George Markert, a farmer, husband, and father who was murdered as he crossed the Stone Arch Bridge on a frigid night in January of 1892. George Markert was born in Germany and came to America shortly after the Civil War. He worked in a tannery in what was known then as Pike Pond. He was married to Carolyn Hyde, who had also moved to the area from Germany, and through hard work and frugal living, eventually saved enough money to purchase a farm. Carolyn's brother, Adam, and his family farmed the land nearby. Neighbors later recall that both Adam Hyde and his wife were uneducated and highly superstitious. Their 5 children shared these traits, and the family was generally looked down upon by those living in the community, including the Markerts. When Carolyn Markert died and George remarried, he and his brother-in-law drifted apart. No longer having much in common, they rarely socialized or even spoke. At some point, Adam Hyde's life began a downward spiral. His crops failed and his health began to deteriorate. He became convinced that George Markert was a hexenmeister, or sorcerer, who possessed supernatural powers and had placed a curse upon him and his family, causing him the misfortunes that seemed to be plaguing his life. Furthermore, Hyde believed that Markert had placed this hex upon him by patting him on the back 3 times, and that Markert could reactivate the curse by performing any ordinary act, like stroking his beard, tugging on his ear, or spitting on the ground 3 times. Hyde confronted Markert about the hex, but his contention was met with laughter and derision. Finally, when his cows began to produce bloody milk, Adam Hyde could take it no longer. On a cold Tuesday night in January of 1892, he followed George Markert to the tavern at the local hotel, where Markert often went for a nightcap. Witnesses would later recall seeing the 2 men leave the hotel together. It was the last time George Markert would be seen alive. As the men crossed the Stone Arch Bridge over the Callicoon Creek, folklore holds that witches and warlocks are powerless over running water. A 3rd man, later determined to be Adam Hyde's eldest son, Joseph, then 22, sprung from the shadows. Markert was stabbed, shot 5 times in the head with a .38 caliber revolver, and clubbed repeatedly with a heavy table leg before his body was thrown over the side of the bridge into the creek below. The Hydes believed that since the hex was activated by an action repeated 3 times, the murder had to be committed 3 different ways to lift it. When Mr. Markert's mutilated and barely recognizable body was discovered in the creek about a quarter of a mile below the bridge a few days later, the community's worst fears were realized. He had undoubtedly been murdered. During his examination of the body, the coroner found a packet of letters written by Adam Hyde to George Markert. The letters provided authorities with the details of the hex as Hyde perceived it, and contained threats of violence if the curse wasn't lifted. Adam Hyde and 2 of his sons, Joseph and 20-year-old John, were arrested almost immediately. John Hyde was able to produce an alibi and was released. The other 2 were charged with the murder and sent to the county jail. A search of Hyde's farm uncovered a revolver of the same caliber as used in the murder, as well as the blood-stained clothing belonging to the 2 men. The father and son were charged with second-degree murder. Neither participated in his own defense, though Joseph Hyde claimed that he had acted only in self-defense. He was nonetheless found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. the judge declared Adam Hite insane and sent him to the state hospital for the criminally insane, where he died of chronic melancholia in 1897. Shortly after the murder, people began reporting eerie sightings of Margaret's ghost on the Stone Arch Bridge, usually on a cold winter night. Those sightings have continued to this day, prompting much speculation. Had George Margaret indeed dabbled in black magic and is now getting his last laugh? The only way to know for sure is to visit the bridge on a cold winter night and ask George yourself.